Hey guys, welcome to Bethel Online. My name is Jason. I'm one of the pastors here, and we're so glad you decided to make us a part of your weekend. No matter who you are, where you come from, we're so glad you're here. Our vision is to be a safe place for real people to encounter the real Jesus and experience real change. Our hope and our prayer is that no matter who you are or what you've been through, you know that you are loved and you are wanted here. We would love to get to know you better and help you connect with all that's going on. You can do this by going to our website at www.bethel.us or by downloading the Bethel app. You can find our app by searching Bethel Putco in your app store. Both online and in the app, you can fill out digital connection card. It only takes a minute and it'll help us know how to serve you better. Another way you can connect today is through giving. Your generosity at Bethel directly impacts God's mission to radically change people's lives in Putnam County and beyond. Through the ministries of Bethel and the many local and regional organizations we support, people are able to see the grace of God and how much He loves them. You can always give on our website at bethel.us/give or in the Bethel app. Thank you for partnering with us and making a difference. Well, thanks again for tuning in online today. Know that you are wanted and welcome here, and you are loved. I hope you all have a great day.
Good morning and welcome to Bethel Online. Today we're in the second week of a series, Unshakeable, that's based out of the book of Daniel. We would all love to live in a way to be unshakable when things are shaking all around us. When life happens and things shake us up, we would like to stand firm. The book of Daniel is a story of these men who were living in difficult and challenging circumstances. These men of God had been in Judah when the Assyrian and Babylonian Empire had come in and overtaken the people of God. It had been massively destructive to God's people. It was as if everything in their homeland was demolished, and now they were overtaken by this empire with these huge, powerful kings who were loving the power and authority they had over all these newly taken lands. And these kings were fascinated by and obsessed with showing their power over people. And so God's people, those who had ascribed to believe in God's power over everything, are now faced with the difficulty of how do we live trusting in God, and how do we live unshaken while we're literally everything in our life is shaken. Today's passage comes out of Daniel 3, but as we get ready to go, there are a couple pieces of context that are important for you to know. Number one, these men were in exile and they were under tons of pressure. They were trying to live out faithfulness while they were in a world that definitely was lending all of its faith into the power of the empire. They had these kings who wanted to show their sovereignty over everything. But the truth is, God is sovereign. We often use words in the church world that we don't explain to people, but sovereignty is a word that I think that the writer of Daniel would want you to understand. Sovereignty is this idea of all-encompassing power. These leaders who were obsessed by it wanted everyone to believe in their sovereignty, their power over all things, their control over all things, their ability to change the plans of everything. And the truth is, though, that no man is sovereign over God. This came in direct conflict with the values of men like Daniel and the three men we're going to talk about today, Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego. These kings were so obsessed. This king in particular, Nebuchadnezzar, was so obsessed with people recognizing his sovereignty and his power over everything that he made an image of gold 60 cubits high and 60 cubits wide and set it up on the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. And then he summoned all of the satraps, prefects, governor, other officials to to come to the dedication of the image he had set up. Can you see the arrogance and the belief of power in King Nebuchadnezzar, that he would literally call all of these people around, and they all assembled for the dedication of the image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up, and they stood before it. Everyone seems to be coming around and doing what the king wanted. And then the herald proclaimed really loudly, "Nations and people of every language, this is what you are commanded to do. As soon as you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music, you must fall down and worship the image of gold that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. Whoever does not fall down and worship will immediately be thrown into a blazing furnace." And here's where the Jaws music plays, because Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego, they were men who drastically believed in the sovereignty of their God. That even though from a worldly standpoint, this king appeared to be sovereign, their core value and belief was in the idea that the God of the heavens and the earth, the God of his people, was powerful over all things, and he was the only one worthy of worship. So when they heard the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, and all kinds of music, all the nations of people, every language, fell down and worshiped the image of gold that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up, which brings to light the fact that oftentimes being faithful means doing what other people will not. At this time, some astrologers came forward and they denounced the Jewish people. They said, "May the king live forever. Your Majesty has issued a decree that everyone who hears all of these instruments must fall down and worship the image of gold, and that whoever does not fall down and worship will be thrown into a blazing furnace." But there are some Jews that have set over the affairs of the province that you've set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, who pay no attention to you. And now he kind of tattles them out. He names them by name. They neither serve your gods nor worship the image of gold you've set up. King Nebuchadnezzar flies into a rage, and he summons Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So these men were brought before the king. And Nebuchadnezzar says to them, "Is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods and worship the image of gold that I've set up?" Now, when you hear all these instruments, he says, we could go through the list again, and for some reason, every time that they're mentioned, the writer writes down all of these noises. It was as if they were being brainwashed to hear a response and then worship the king. He says, "If you're ready to fall down and worship the image I made, very good. But if you do not worship it, you'll be thrown immediately into a blazing furnace. Then what God will be able to rescue you from my hand?" This is a pretty arrogant statement from Nebuchadnezzar, basically saying, "I dare your God to test my sovereignty over you." Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to him, "King Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. If we're thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it, and he will deliver us from your majesty's hand. When it comes to your faithfulness, know this: God is your defender. You can count on him to be for your good. But even if he does not, this is what Daniel or Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego say to him: if we're thrown in the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it, and he will deliver us from your majesty's hand. But even if he does not," I love that line. What a powerful line. "But even if he does not," I feel like that's a line where Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego were like, we are not bowing to a God who is not sovereign. We know the sovereign God. "We want you to know, your majesty, we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up." Hey, you can change almost everything around, but you won't become sovereign over us. Then Nebuchadnezzar was furious with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and his attitude toward them changed. He ordered the furnace heated 7 times hotter than usual, and commanded some of the strongest soldiers in his army to tie up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and throw them in the blazing furnace. So these men wearing their robes, trousers, turbans, and other clothing were bound and thrown into the blazing furnace. It does not appear that God is coming through yet. Oftentimes we need to step into faithfulness before God proves his. The king's command was so urgent and the furnace so hot that the flames of the fire literally killed the soldiers who took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these three men, firmly tied, fell into the blazing furnace. And this is where you think the story should end. This is where you think that Nebuchadnezzar has proved his point, that he's shown his sovereignty. And how dare these people doubt me? But God is present in the situation. King Nebuchadnezzar leaped to his feet in amazement and asked his advisors, weren't these three men tied up and thrown into the fire? They replied, certainly, Your Majesty. He said, look, I see 4 men walking around in the fire, unbound and unharmed, and the fourth looks like the son of the gods. There were 3 in the fire, but then there were 4 in the fire. The 3 were thrown in, but the 4 were wound up being in the fire. Who was present with them? God was present with them. The one who was sovereign over all the power of Nebuchadnezzar. Notice that those who had been bound up were also freed. They were unharmed. Their faithfulness allowed them to remain unharmed. Their faithfulness and God's presence allowed them to remain unharmed. Notice that Nebuchadnezzar gets a front row seat to the sovereignty of God. Nebuchadnezzar then approached the opening of the blazing furnace and shouted, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come here. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came out of the fire. I'd like to tell you that in this moment, Nebuchadnezzar really figured it out. But the truth was his pride continues to be a problem throughout the story of the book of Daniel. And his desire to be God over things and God over the God of Israel continues to arise and ultimately leads him to insanity. All of these people gathered around them and they saw that the fire had not harmed their bodies, nor was a hair on their heads singed. Your faithfulness will be seen. Their robes were not scorched and there was no smell of fire on them. Then King Nebuchadnezzar said, praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and rescued his servants. They trusted in him and defied the king's command and were willing to give up their lives rather than serve or worship any God except their own God. The main idea that I would bring before you today is that courage in trials shows your family and the people around you, your children, how faith withstands pressure. The way that we choose to have integrity and courage in our trials doesn't just impact us. First off, we can count on God to take care of us when we're wholly devoted to him. But you can trust that God will use your faithfulness for generations. In Daniel 3:16, when Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to King Nebuchadnezzar, we don't need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. Understand the courage of this moment. Everything looked absolutely hopeless if they didn't turn their back on their God. But there was another one in the fire. Key points. Number 1, courage is choosing God over comfort. Can you imagine the discomfort these 3 men felt? I mean, they watched their people entirely be squashed by Nebuchadnezzar. With just a simple command, he could have them burnt. Can you imagine that kind of authority in a leader in the world today? Just have them burnt. Courage caused them to wind up being uncomfortable. I mean, can you imagine that they wondered, is God going to see us through this? But God desired to show his sovereignty through their life. 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7 says, for God gave us a spirit, not of fear, but of power. We don't walk in weakness or in fear, but in the power of God. Number 2, God's presence is with us when we choose courage. When we choose to follow him, when the whole culture is pulling us away, when the other gods around us are screaming, worship me, God is with us when we choose to worship him. Isaiah 43 verse 2 says, when you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. Number 3, your courage inspires your family's faith. And I want to take it a step further than that. Nebuchadnezzar is remembered historically for being a prideful king whose pride and arrogance led him to destruction. And these 3 men who chose courage are remembered as the epitome of what it means to truly worship God and allow him sovereignty over all of your life. Their courage continues to be taught for generations. We live in a world that is dying to see courageous, convicted people choose to worship God in a way where God shows up. People are watching. Parents, in the moments where you're tempted to compromise your values, understand there's a generation watching you. They might know what you believe, but they will see what you do. The people you work with, the people you live around, they will watch, they will see. Will they see the extra person? Will they see the sovereign king that walks with you through your troubles? Psalm 78 verse 4 says, we will tell the next generation the praiseworthy deeds of the Lord. In Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 6 and 7 say, these commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. We live in a world where we're not risking being thrown in a fiery furnace. But the heat is on, my friends. There's a world that's crying for your allegiance. There are political factions crying for your allegiance. There are hobbies and all sorts of things, material things that are crying for your devotion and your commitment. Will you choose to be unshakable and be courageous as you walk in faith? My message to you today is that that's the only right decision for God's people. It's the only acceptable decision for God's people. And that you can count on God being present when the heat is on. I love you, Bethel. Have a great week.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Are you ready to take your next step? We would love to hear from you. You can send an email to hello@bethel.us. You can send us a message on Facebook, or you can let us know in the Bethel app. And speaking of the Bethel app, take a moment, if you haven't already, to go to your app store and search Bethel Putco to download our app. There's all kinds of great resources in the app. You can listen to messages, you can view the messages from Sunday morning, and you can also fill out a digital Connect card. You can do that today and each week to let us know that you're tuning in. You can also find some great information about our Bethel Kids Ministry and our Be the One student ministries. Also in the app, you can give. It's one of 3 ways you can give, with online giving at bethel.us/give, in our app, Bethel Putco, or through text. Hey, thanks again for joining us. We hope you have a great day and know that you are loved.